On today's episode of the Bradeaux and Will Show, we're going to be talking about the Rockets signing Reggie Bullock, the possibility of potentially bringing a guy like Malcom Brogdon. And we just had Media Day. So, of course, we got all the fun quotes from the players and the coaching staff. Raphael Stone. We're going to be discussing that. And then lastly, we have training camp footage that just dropped. So, we're going to be discussing that as well. Some roles for guys like Whitmore, who needs to, crave out a role for himself to get minutes early on. So, those are topics we're going to be discussing today. It's been a while. But we're back. We're excited for this episode, and you guys are going to enjoy it, so stay tuned.
All right, and welcome back to another episode of the Bradeaux and Will Show. No, it's been a little minute. We was gone for the off season. Season's coming back around. We got y'all back with the episodes dropping. I'm your first host as always, Will. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, now TikTok, at Bias Houston. Over there, same as always, doing the different content aggregation, talking about the Rockets, hosting spaces. We got some big things in store for y'all this season, so make sure you tap in over there. I'll quickly shout out the Bradeaux and Will page on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok as well. We appreciate the support you guys showed us this off season. We're gonna run it up this season. I'll pass off to Brad.
Yeah, like Will said, it's been a little minute, but we're excited from the growth that we had this past off season. So thank you guys for listening. We got up to 2,000 subs. It's gonna be a fun season. Got the new players, of course, new coach. Hopefully, we're gonna run it up this season. But as for today, we have some fun topics, of course. With Media Day is always exciting. We got some training camp footage today that leaked. There's some rumors about maybe the Rockets could, maybe make a move for Malcom Brogdon. And of course, today the signing as of October 3rd of Reggie Bullock on a veteran minimum. It looks like he might plug in that backup shooting guard role. But before we dive into that, of course, if you're new to the channel, you can find my stuff at Bradeaux NBA on Instagram and Twitter. I put out a bunch of highlights, stats, all that good stuff. Always gonna keep you guys updated there. But we'll start you off. The Rockets again signed Reggie Bullock, really good shooter, 38% this past season on 5.1 attempts per game. Usually starts off the season really slow, then is really hot towards the end. But off rip, he's already the best high volume shooter on the Houston Rockets. If you're going off of percentages from last season, so what are your thoughts on the signing? Where do you think he plugs in with this current team?
I think he if you might look up the catch and shoot from me, wouldn't like 39%.
He shot 39.4% on catch and shoot. He's on double check me right now.
Yeah, so he's. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind when I saw the trade, I thought two things. I thought one, we got shooters now. We have a shooter. That was one of the biggest areas of need this offseason, and that issue got compounded with the KPJ situation. So now we have a roster that didn't really have that much spacing, particularly on the bench unit. When you have a guy like Amin Thompson who's going to need that spacing to put pressure on the rim, and that's kind of what his game is to kick out fine shooters. And so I was kind of confused as to how we were going to address that problem. We're going to kind of dive into maybe another solution to that a little later in the show. But I think in terms of getting a shooter, I think this was great. He just got bought out by the Spurs. He's someone who started a bunch of games on a contender last year. He's a vet. He's been in the league for I think it might have been like 8 seasons now. I think it's how long he's been in the NBA. I'm not sure, but he's been here for a little bit. He's been on winning teams. He knows the NBA program. He's someone who I think Udoka is going to once again use as like an extension of himself in terms of a veteran, in terms of a locker room presence. We've all watched the Rockets these last 3 years. We know what it's like to have a locker room that didn't have any vets. Well, now we have honestly, we have more vets than we have young players now, which I don't think is. I think that's a good thing. I think that this young team needed, experience in the locker room, guys who have been there and who've done that. And so I think he provides that veteran leadership that we've been desperately missing, but at the same time, he's also going to be providing that spacing we need. I think his defense is solid. I'm not going to say it's great, but it's definitely not bad. Like he's more positive than negative. But we're not getting like an elite defender or nothing like that. Like he'll definitely fit in there. I want to talk to you about this, bro. I think one interesting point, you can kind of touch on maybe when you go is, I wonder, is this the organization kind of signaling that they don't intend to trade KPJ for a win now piece? More of just like if they do trade him at all, it might just be for like for expiring salary they can maybe use at the deadline for another trade, or maybe they just straight up cut the guy now. Because Reggie Bullock kind of serves as what you would more or less hope you were going to get out of a KPJ trade to a lesser degree. Backup shooting, experience, a little bit of defense. Like he kind of serves the player aspect of things. He doesn't quite serve the contract side of it. So that's why I'm saying I wonder if they're going to, if they do trade KPJ, is it now just for someone who they can move again at the deadline? And then also, like, what does this mean for Jayshawn Tate? Because that's another guy who I think makes a lot more sense to get minutes on the roster than a Jayshawn Tate does. And so, yeah, I don't know if, I mean, obviously, I think Udoka's going to like Jayshawn Tate first and foremost, and we've seen some clips of him at training camp already. Still being with the group. So I'm not saying he's going to get traded anytime soon or just lose minutes entirely. But I do think it becomes a little bit difficult to play him, to play Dylan Brooks, to play Jabari, to play Tari, to play Reggie Bullock. That's a lot of guys who have to play. So yeah, those are kind of just my initial thoughts on that.
Yeah, I want to touch on that as well. We can also just dive right into the Malcom Brogdon discussion after because it's kind of linked. But, when it comes to Reggie, obviously there's a big gap at backup shooting guard now based on what happened recently. So Reggie comes in and fills that really well. I like that this team, got a shooter, 38% shooter. As it stood right now, Tari Eason was the best shooter on the team if you're going off for percentages from this past season at 34.3%. If you don't want to count Aaron Holiday, who shot around 40%, he only took like 1.9 attempts per game and barely played. So point being, the team needed some shooters. So this is a really good signing, space to floor, which is what Udoka said when he first got hired at the very beginning of the offseason. He wanted to be able to space the floor and play some defense. Now, he's kind of addressed both of those this offseason. So I love the signing. I think he's going to get big minutes. I would say 20-ish minimum. When it comes to a guy like Jayshawn Tate and Cam Whitmore, obviously, I even put it on Twitter today. This is going to be an exciting 10-man lineup. I did not have Jayshawn Tate in that lineup, but that doesn't mean I really think Jayshawn Tate's not going to be in the lineup. I was just kind of alluding to what's going to be exciting. Jayshawn Tate has a lot of qualities that Ime Udoka would like. Really good defender, connective piece, hustle guy, 1,000% effort. Again, the brother really just can't shoot. I need that to change. But even if it doesn't, he could sneak into this rotation because he's probably more of a win now piece than Cam Whitmore. We'll see soon. The preseason starts in a few days, so we'll see what happens there. But honestly, I think Jayshawn Tate is probably cracking the initial rotation if he's going with a 10-man. If it's 9-man, then probably not. But I could see Jayshawn playing. Again, I've always thought he was an Udoka guy. We'd all prefer to see Cam Whitmore play. But, we'll see what happens on that front. But as it comes to Malcom Brogdon, I want to touch on that really quickly. I like Malcom Brogdon. Again, really good veteran piece, 6-man guy, 44% from three this past season. As we were talking about Reggie Bullock, he's the best high volume shooter on the team. Malcom Brogdon obviously becomes the best shooter on the team in that sense. I'm looking at a guy like Ahmed Thompson. I want him to be able to work with as much space as possible. Jalen to work with as much. All these slashers, young guys that we have, just to be able to excel, in what they have. Even Şengün, if he's posting up, having space around him. So having guys like that who can shoot the ball, smart vets, lead ball handlers. And I think our young guys can even learn from a guy like Malcom Brogdon. And Will, you brought up a good point. I never even realized we have more vets now than young players. So continuously adding more vets along with the new coaching staff is only going to help this young core of 6 that we have. And this young core of 6, I mean, that's what's going to take this team as far as it wants to go at the end of the day. Their development is most important. That's what has been echoed this entire offseason as well. So I don't think Malcom takes away from any of that. I've seen people concerned that Malcom, will take away from Ahmed's development. I don't think so. I think Ahmed Thompson is one of them guys. He's going to be a top 3 rookie in the class when it's all said and done. Top 3, 4. Really good. Really, really good. I don't think anyone's taking away from that. Udoka's playing the guys who are going to excel, and he's going to excel. I don't think anyone's going to take away from that, even a Malcom Brogdon pickup. And what that would be probably a KPJ sign and trade, along with, probably a lot of picks and maybe another guy. But I don't know if they'll be getting anything for KPJ. And this goes for your question, Will. They'll probably just take whatever they can get for Kevin Porter Jr. at this point, because he's probably going to end up being cut at the end of the day. I don't see anything brewing soon. I know they wanted to get rid of this fiasco as soon as possible before training camp is what they initially said. I believe. You correct me if I'm wrong. So I'd assume they take anything, whether it's a salary filler, um, anything. They probably would get a win now piece if they could. If that would be my guess. Why not? At the end of the day, but I think it currently stands at. We'll see what we can get. If we can get nothing, he's cut. But that's where I would say.
I want to say that one, there isn't any like sourcing to a Malcolm Brogdon trade.
No.
All the speculation is coming from a Twitter account that got a lot of the signings right this summer. That's really all it is. It's just an account that made a little name for itself because he was able to accurately report on signings before Woj and Shams did. So that's the only like even remote truth to a Malcolm Brogdon Houston trade. But you know how Rockets fans are. We talk about the little city of things when it comes to our favorite team. So obviously with Malcolm Brogdon, I couldn't agree more with what Brad said. 44% 3-point shooting. And it's like it's on decent volume. It was like what, five attempts, something like that.
It was a good volume. It was
and this is off the bench, by the way, not even as a starter. Like I don't know if you got it pulled up, but
I got you real quick. I know I'm lacking a little bit, but no, he was shooting though. So 44.4% on 4.4 attempts.
Yeah, goodness gracious, and that's like I said, that's off the bench, and I think his catch and shoot number is even higher than that as well, which is what I'm looking at a lot for these guys. And so yeah, like I talked about the same thing with Reggie Bullock. When you have a guy like Amin Thompson coming off of your bench, and not even just Amin Thompson, like the whole team, we don't have spacing. That's one of our biggest weaknesses. It's the lack of spacing. When you have guys like that who thrive on spacing, I don't think there's a such thing as like too many shooters, which we really don't have a lot of at all. I know that a lot of people are really, really concerned with Malcolm Brogdon because they think that he's going to take away touches from Amin Thompson. And it doesn't concern me nearly as much for a couple reasons. One, Malcolm Brogdon, like when you talk about a thing as too many ball handlers, that only becomes an issue when one of your ball handlers cannot play off ball, which to a lesser degree Amin has or is going to be able to do. But Malcolm Brogdon for sure has already shown you, just last season, even his rookie season when he came to like he's a guy, he's a true combo guard in like the literal meaning of that word. He can play the one or he can play the two, and he can be effective in both roles. So like he's not the type of guy, he's not super ball dominant. He doesn't need the ball in his hands to impact the game. He showed us just last season that he can impact the game, being an off ball, being a shooting guard, spacing the floor. And it's kind of funny because when you look at what Malcolm Brogdon did for the Celtics last year, down to like the number production, it's kind of what we were hoping Kevin Porter Jr. would do for the Rockets this season. Came off the bench, played a role, spotted up, was an elite shooter. That's something we really hoped KPJ was going to be was bring his spacing. So Malcolm Brogdon, elite shooter. He's a secondary, ball handler, someone who can run the offense if need be. You don't have to worry about like Amin being out there with a bunch of guys who just catch and shoot. Like if the play, if they need to run another play, something breaks down, you can give it to Malcolm Brogdon. He can reliably create off advantages. And then while Malcolm Brogdon isn't necessarily the world's best, like he's not a great defender, but not like Malcolm Brogdon's really solid at it. And he's not fooled at all defensively. So like those are all like the qualities that we wanted from Kevin Porter Jr. And then on top of it, the dude's already he's a vet. He's a guy who's played with a lot of great NBA players. Played with Giannis, played with Tatum, played with Jaylen Brown, played with I believe he played with Chris Middleton, and I don't know if he was there when I don't think he was there when Drew Holiday was there, but he's played with a lot of experienced guys. Played with Sabonis. He's been around the league for a little minute. So just having that guy, someone who's already coached. Was he coached by Udoka? Was he there when they went to the finals? I don't think he was actually. I think he got there last off season. So yeah, I don't know if he's familiar with Coach Udoka just yet, but veteran guy. So that's one thing he actually has on KPJ in terms of like, what he would bring to the table. And so, yeah, like when we talk about, him conflicting with the men, I don't really see that being a problem. And I do think that a lot of people, I think, want a men to kind of run heliocentric basketball off the bench. And I don't really think that that's good for his development because that's not the role he's going to be playing when he becomes the starting point guard of this team. Like he's not going to be the starting point guard and we're going to surround him with 3D guys who just shoot and, catch and shoot threes and play defense. Like he's going to play with Jalen Green, who's going to have his own healthy dosage of on-ball reps. He's going to have to play with Alperen Şengün, who same thing with him. He's going to get the ball in his spots, and he's going to learn how to be effective. without having the ball in a sense all the time. So I think introducing someone to that picture who does like require a min to play a little bit off ball and to do a little bit more of the things that, and not saying he doesn't do this. I think a min already does a lot of the things that you would want from someone, when the ball's not in their hands. Like I think he's already a really good prospect. But he's gonna be able to practice those things with Malcom Brogdon so that when he comes to the starting lineup, it's not like an adjustment for him. Like he already knows, okay, I gotta cut, I gotta set screens, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Because I'm not going, like, the ball's not gonna be in my hand 24/7. And then the last reason it doesn't really concern me at all is just Steven Silas isn't the head coach anymore. Like this isn't the 2022 Rockets where you have guys playing out of position, out of role, guys who should be shooting or standing in the corner, guys who you don't have the Bruno Fernando over Alperen Sengun stuff no more. Like that's not happening at all. So I think if you trust Ime Udoka as a head coach to put guys in the right spots for them to be successful, he's already talked about. Like that's one thing he's talked about a lot. Already is just maximizing what guys' strengths are. If you believe in his ability to do that, there's no reason to be afraid that a man's going to get lost in the circuit. Like he's going to be there. His minutes are going to be there. I think Malcom Brogdon makes him a better basketball player. And so yeah, like I'm all in on that trade. Like Brad said, it's probably going to be a KPJ trade with a bunch of second round picks attached to it. Because I think with his injury concerns, which are pretty real, by the way, I think it will be remiss of me to not acknowledge that the guy is very injury prone, and so much so that like the Clippers declined him earlier this offseason. So there are like real concerns with his injuries that might keep him out of the rotation for a lot longer than what we would hope. So yeah, with those concerns, I don't think he's worth what you would traditionally hope he'd be worth. So yeah, I could see a scenario where like we have a bunch of second round picks next season, the season after that, offloading a bunch of those with KPJ's contract. Celtics get, I'm sorry, not the Celtics, the Trailblazers get expiring salary and assets, and we get a player who we hope can, be that 6 man of the year candidate for us in Houston. So yeah, I kind of don't really get the downside of trading for Malcom Brogdon if that avenue presents itself. But I do think that it may not be as in the works now that we do have a Reggie Bullock, because that kind of does handle that need for a backup, another playable body, right? We have another one of those guys now. So I don't know to what degree are we still going to be demanding for a Malcom Brogdon trade, but we can move on. So anything you want to add to that?
I would say last thing, and it would probably be more expensive than attaching a bunch of seconds, just because you traded Dame. It was probably going to be as stingy as possible when it comes to any asset that's involved. So I could see them pushing like, no, we want more than some seconds. So to your point,
I'd be shocked, man. I mean, because of how, like, there was a point. Remember, he got traded initially in that Porzingis trade, and they said no because you're too hurt.
Yeah.
And so and he's not like he's expiring. He's under. I would be very shocked if they get a first. I'm gonna assume it's gonna be like so protected. You remember those Washington Wizard and Detroit Pistons picks we owned in like 2020 that were first round picks, but they really weren't because they were so protected.
Yeah.
Maybe that where it's like it's a first that's so protected that it'll never convey in terms of a first round pick. Maybe, but I would be shocked if they got a first round pick they conveyed for Malcom. But you know what? I also don't know how the NBA market works, so I could be wrong.
We'll see. I know it's probably gonna be difficult for Malcom to come to Houston in the first place, but Will and I same page. I think it would be nice. But moving on from that, again, we just had media, in this past few days, and it was really exciting. A lot of fun quotes, got a lot of young guys in there, a lot of the vets in there. First things first, I think we can just go in, just give some of our favorite quotes, maybe some takeaways from the entire day itself. And I can first off and start. My favorite takeaway was you have all these young guys. It seems like you're just excited to learn from the vets. They've gotten to know them. Key things that they could take away from each one. It seems like all of them kind of mentioned, Fred being that leader. Specifically Jalen, who's been able to work with him. He's enjoyed that experience. You have guys like, Tari and Jabari, both have that defensive mentality. Like, I want to guard the best player on the court. I want to be the best defender in the NBA. And now they get to learn from Dylan Brooks. And they've already been, picking Dylan's mind on that and learn from him in that aspect. Is, Dylan spoke on how he's going to help them take that kind of approach. So those are things that stood out to me. I like Jock Landau. I think he had one of the best,
really good interview
responses or interviews. He came in there and said, hey, I'm going to do all the dirty work. I'm going to give 1,000%. I'm going to get guys open. I'm just going to do all the right things. I'm going to push Alperen Sengun. He does everything offensively now, but I can help push them defensively, get them guys in the right spots, make sure they're boxing out. Just a perfect role player that you'd want on your basketball team. He did really good on the Phoenix Suns this past season, to the point where he was pushing Ayton's minutes to the side. So Lando, I liked what I heard from him. I'm excited to see what he can do at backup center. And again, that guy can low-key shoot, even though his percentages don't say so. Really good shooting in Australia. This hasn't translated to the NBA. So I think he could be a really good piece for Houston. But outside of Lando, I love what I heard from Uncle Jeff. Said he saw some similarities in that hunger from that OKC young core back in the day, with this current group. And just a lot of overall good answers, spoke on, Şengün and Nikola Jokic, how Şengün wants to learn from him. It's just good to have a lot of vets in this locker room now that these guys can learn from. And, the last thing I wanted to touch on was what Ime Udoka said about Jalen Green. He said, hey, Jalen, we all know he's a bucket, this and that, but at the end of the day, we want him to be a well-rounded player overall. And that's what's going to be the challenge for him this upcoming season. So they're going to push him to be well-rounded, do everything. Jalen said he can shoot and he can pass, but he wants to do everything else. I still think he can grow as a playmaker, even though he's grown as a playmaker. But just that overall growth is what is going to, make year 3 such a special year for him at 21 years old. So a lot of growth from that young kid that we'll still see. But overall, good media day. Even like what Ahmed said, rookie of the year, Depoy. We said rookie of the year, defensive first team, all that good stuff, making the playoffs. That's what the kid wants. So fun media day. I definitely enjoyed it. What stood out to you?
I thought Fred had a really good, they brought him. He was the first player to come in. I think that really set the tone.
Yeah,
especially as someone who is, I think he's going to be the leader of the leaders. In terms of the players, I think Udoka is going to be the leader. But like of the actual players, I think Fred VanVleet's going to be the guy who everyone looks up to. And I think that's a really good role. That's what he was brought here to do. So kind of him going first and him talking about that aspect of what he's going to bring in terms of his leadership, and how he's going to make the individual guys better. I thought that he was really well spoken, and I feel even more confident giving him the keys to this team for the next couple of seasons in terms of being the point guard and being the leader. So I really liked what I heard from him. Dylan Brooks is somebody else who not only did I like hearing him speak, I also liked hearing the team speak, especially like Jabari and Tari speak about the role he's played with them already. Like Tari said that like right when he got signed, they had conversations. I'm gonna try to find the exact quote. Yeah, he said Dylan Brooks showed him the blueprint to success defensively. And like that was one of the reasons, even me as someone who was not that high on a Dylan Brooks signing, I did acknowledge that having Tari Eason and Jabari Smith and these young wings, and even Jalen Green to an extent, even having someone who takes that much pride and has found that much success defensively as Dylan Brooks in the locker room, being able to like bestow upon those keys to that success, like Tari put upon our young wings who we hope will become as good defensively as Dylan Brooks is one day. Like I thought that was really good. So to hear that he's already kind of instilling that in them, that was music to my ears. He also talked about how Jalen Green is one of the toughest covers in the league already at 21 now? He's 21, so 21 years old. Going to be 22 next season. He's already talked about how Jalen is one of the most toughest covers in the league. And like for a guy with as much like to have the resume Dylan Brooks does defensively, to say that about Jalen, I think is like extremely high praise. So you love to hear that as well. I love that Jock Landale, I'm going to cover all the vets. I love that Landale talked about how he's going to push Alperen Şengün defensively. And I really start thinking, I'm like, we haven't really had a center on this team. Like Şengün, outside of Christian Wood, who had his ups and downs in a Rockets uniform, there hasn't really been another big on this team, right? Like I'm talking about recently, of course. We had Boban, but Boban's not a vet. Bruno's not a vet. Boban is a vet, but he's not. I kind of get the vibe that Boban's just kind of there for the commercials. Let's be a little honest. He's not really here for the basketball. Bruno's not really a vet. We had Garuba as the backup 5, and once again, he's not a vet. He's not really a 5, if we're being completely honest. So like this is really the first time that Şengün's had like someone who's like real at the position to push him. And like he talked about how he pushed DeAndre Ayton in practice and how he feels like he got better as a defender, having to guard the pick and roll with like Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, and so like that made him better defensively. So he's hoping he can kind of do the same thing for Alperen Sengun. So I thought that was really cool that he's like, y'all want to make this guy better, especially defensively. And then Jeff Green, I think, listening to him talk, like I'm not sure that there was another guy other than maybe like Udonis Haslem who retired that we could have asked to come to the scene that would have been better for like just that experienced guy who's been there. Jeff Green's, I think we talked about when we first signed him. He's been on a lot of teams. He's been, matter of fact, he might be. I don't know if he has the record for active NBA players or if he's like he has to be like top 3 if he doesn't have it. But there's probably not 3 guys in the NBA who's been on more teams than Jeff Green has that are still active. He's been on a lot of teams. He's played with a lot of all-time greats. He's played with KD. He's played with Russ. Played with James. Played with LeBron. Played with. He just got done playing with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. And, the only thing I love that what he says is Alperen Sengun's already asking him questions about Nikola Jokic's preparation and, what were some of the keys that Nikola Jokic used to be successful. So I love that Sengun's kind of picking Jeff Green's brain and trying to learn from someone who he looks up to. But yeah, I'm not sure that there was a better guy out there for what this locker room needed than a Jeff Green. So I loved hearing that from him. And so, yeah, those are my big takeaways, was just kind of listen to the experienced guys and kind of talk about what they plan to bring to this team and what type of role they have. Obviously, no one wants to lose anymore. That was kind of the sentiment that was echoed from all the speakers. The losing's done. We're tired of that. We want to start, progress towards the winning department. So, once again, it's really exciting to be a Rockets fan right now.
No, yeah, definitely exciting. And what makes it even more exciting was, we even got some training camp footage today. And that's always fun. For the first time we got to see, all these new guys on the court together. We saw an exciting, Amin Thompson, not even Amin Thompson. Amin Thompson, we saw him throwing dimes. We heard recently from Jackson Gatlin, who's at the practice, that overall he had one of the really good scrimmages. A lot of dimes on that front. We saw footage that dropped. Fred VanVleet threw a half-court alley-oop to Jalen Green. So that's good to see. How many half-court Jalen Green lobs have we seen in the past 2 years?
Maybe not 5.
So hopefully we get a lot more of those. And outside of that, it's just fun to get these guys on the court, and it's going to be a fun season. But Will, I don't know if you saw the recent tweet that Jackson put out. I'm sure Jackson will put on his show. You guys will all see that because Jackson, of course, really good YouTube channel. But I'll echo what Jackson put out there. But pretty much he was saying that Jayshawn Tate looked really good out there. Really good lead ball handler, did really good facilitating. He was on the court with Amin. If Amin had the ball, Jayshawn Tate was moving around, cutting and slashing, and vice versa. If Tate had the ball, Amin was doing the same. So they worked off of each other really well. And they said Jabari Smith Jr.
I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, Jabari Smith Jr. did really good as well. Driving to the paint, looks a lot more concise and in control. So, yeah, it's cool to see those takeaways. But, as a whole, again, having Fred as that lead guy next to Jalen, that's what I'm most excited about after looking at this training camp stuff. But Will, what are your thoughts overall about training camp?
I'm looking at my TL Sam Vecini quote tweeted Jackson's tweet talking about this is the most creative set Houston has ever run for Jabari. Yeah. And it came into practice.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I was that was actually the first thing I was going to talk about was Jabari put Tari on a poster. But like what I really liked, I think everyone at home should go watch that clip. It's on Jackson Gatlin's page. Look how low to the earth Jabari gets on that drive. Like I guess it's that yoga paying off. Like that's not what he was doing last year.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like I didn't know man had that much fluidity. And obviously he's not like I'm not saying he's Kevin Durant just yet, but like I didn't know he had that in his bag. It's kind of cool because every time I watch Jabari, whether it was at summer league or at his runs this offseason at various spots or now at training camp, like every time I watch him, he shows me something. I'm like, bro, I didn't know you had that in your bag. Like,
yeah,
I didn't know.
Will, real quick. From Auburn to now, when have you seen him come from the top, full speed down and just yam on somebody? Like,
and to get, like I said, like I want y'all to pay attention to what the angle he's at when he's driving to the basket. Like, bro was hitting, like, yeah, obviously it's not no Kyrie Irving stuff, obviously, but like,
yeah. I
don't remember him getting this low to the ground. Like this is, like I said, every time I watch him, he's showing me something new. So that's really exciting. Amin Thompson, I did see the one dime that he threw. He threw a dime to Jayshawn Tate cutting to the basket. And he was putting pressure on the rim when he threw the dime. So hearing that he's already out here throwing dimes. I mean, once again, that's why I was so high on him. I'm so positive he's gonna be one of them ones in this NBA, man. Like the IQ he plays with is just insane. So hearing that's kind of already manifesting is really good to hear. Hearing that Jayshawn Tate is standing out. It's funny. I laughed at it not because I think people at home know I like Jayshawn Tate. I think he's gotten a bad rep. He was one of my favorite players on the Rockets. I think I've argued for him quite a bit. And I do think that he's going to be a guy Ime Udoka likes. I don't really know how much I want him to play next season, not because I think he's bad, but because I think he's a bit redundant with the guys we already have. But so, hearing that he's kind of having a big role, I'm sure Rockets Twitter I haven't even looked at it just yet, but I'm sure Rockets Twitter is really thrilled to hear that he's handling the ball and really standing out. So I bet it's a real positive thing. And then obviously the chemistry between Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet. Like Brad said, we probably saw maybe 5 full court lobs from Jalen in his first 2 years. I don't know. That's just a rough estimate off the top of my head, but that obviously wasn't something we saw a lot of. Yeah, I'm getting tired just thinking about that actually. So yeah, having that in the backcourt with him, that was one thing that Jalen and Fred talked a lot about at media day actually was their connection, their chemistry, and working together as a backcourt. And Fred kind of taking Jalen under his wing. So, like if Fred's able to get the version of Jalen that we all thought we were getting when we drafted him, I mean, money well spent. We're all happy with him here. So yeah, those are my biggest takeaways, for at least from what I've heard and what I've watched. Obviously, I'm not there, so I can't comment on that much. But I did want to say that one thing that I do. I tweeted out. I've kind of been thinking about this a lot over the last couple of days. I think that I don't see what you think, Brad. I don't think there's anyone on this roster who serves to gain more from training camp than Cam Whitmore, because I think that when you look at where the roster was and who the rotations were projected to be, who a lot of us at home thought, a lot of us didn't really see a way for Cam Whitmore to fit into those minutes, right? And there might have been a way for him to get minutes with KPJ going. We just replaced KPJ already, so now it's like once again we're back in that conundrum where it's like, how does this guy get consistent burn next season? So I think that if there's one person who needs to take training camp, not saying he won't. I mean, obviously he has a motor. He's a dog, so I'm not concerned about him, his effort or him taking it seriously. But if there's one person who needs to dive on them balls, needs to dive on them loose balls, who needs to who needs to go for the extra rebound, who needs to hustle, they're gonna get me for saying that. If there's one person who needs to go the extra mile in training camp, I think it's Cam Whitmore, because I think that's going to be what Udoka looks at. And it's like, okay, this guy I can find a role for him, because I know if I can trust him, put him out there, he's going to do the little things that me as a head coach that I love. On top of already what he brings as a cutter, as a bucket, as someone who can spot up. On top of those things, I know he's also going to do the little things. And so I think if he's able, not saying he's guaranteed a spot, but I think that doing those things is going to give him as good of a shot he's ever going to have to crack a rotation, and not get sent to the G League this year. So I don't know. Is there somebody else you think can serve from training camp, or you think it's Cam Whitmore too?
When you think about training camp and training camp battles, Cam Whitmore is the only one. You have a great point. He has high goals for himself. He wanted to come out and say, he wanted to be Rookie of the Year. So he obviously wants those minutes. There's a way for him to fit in really well, but again, added a whole bunch of vets. And he might not fit that mix. I think he put it perfectly. We didn't know if he's going to play, while Kevin was there, and especially now after Reggie pulled up. So, yeah, he'll really have to show out in training camp and in preseason and earn those minutes. We'll ultimately see what happens, especially with the report that Tate's playing good today. Tate's got a few years under his belt. He's not just a third-year player. This guy's 27, 28. Older guy. Yeah, I know it's crazy to say, but. We'll see, but I think you're right on the money with that Cam Whitmore take. We would love to see that young guy out there, but he's just 19 years old. His growth will come. I like his game a lot, and he'll be on that floor one of these days. But we'll see if it happens. I don't know if it'll be day one, but he'll have to earn it. We'll have to see what he does these next few weeks. But last thing I wanted to touch on in this podcast, if you had anything else, Will.
I have something after you.
Yeah, the Rockets, Fred VanVleet briefly flashed, we might be getting some new jerseys. In fact, we are getting some new jerseys, and we got the color colors right here. You know, we bring
It's
them back.
kind of match the ones you wearing right now, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's why I threw it on. You know what I'm saying? So we got the baby blue and the red coming back. So I'm excited to see what they do with that. It's always fun to get some new jerseys, new threads, new identity with this team this year. So get a new look as well. So hopefully those drop soon. But yeah, that's the last thing I want to touch on.
I want to touch on something more with Cam. Let's say that he doesn't crack the rotation, which would not be a disappointment or like an indictment on him as a player at all. So I don't want to see like those takes. But like, let's say he does get into the G League because there's not a rotation spot for him right now. I don't know how you feel about it, but I kind of don't want him going down there and being LeBron James. Like I think that's one of the ways we did Josh Christopher a disservice was sending Josh to the G League and letting him be James Harden, just ball in his hands all the time. You know, he's putting up all the shots. The team kind of revolves around him, and like rightfully so to a degree, because Josh and Cam would be the best player on the roster, but like that's not the role that they're gonna play with the team. Now, I think that's one of the reasons why Josh Christopher did struggle to get minutes last year, and when he did get minutes, there were times where he looked lost because he's practicing in the G League is I'm James Harden. I got the ball in my hands. ISO, dribble, everything revolves around me. And that's cool because he's good at that in the G League. But when it comes to the team, that's not your role. You're not going to be the James Harden of the team. So I want Cam to obviously get like his healthy usage of like, being the primary. He's the best player down there. But I still want him to work on the things that he's going to do on the actual team, right? I still want him to practice his cutting. I still want to work on spot up shooting. I still want him to work on his decision making and being a connected piece, making the extra pass. Like I don't want it to just be Cam Boomer get the ball, drive all game. Or Cam Boomer get the ball, tween as he step back all game. Like do some of the stuff that you're gonna do, unless of course the guy is just Jaylen Brown already, in which case like okay, I guess who cares at that point. But assuming he is gonna be a 19-year-old and still needs to develop, I want him to work on the skills that's gonna get him minutes, not the skills that's going to make him a superstar as a 19-year-old, if that makes sense. And I don't know, that's kind of where I'm at on it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think you put it on the mic to the point where I don't even want to expound on it. So yeah, you did that really well. But of course, guys, I wanted to say we're excited for the season to be back around the corner. Preseason starts in a week from today when we're dropping this episode. So of course, me and Will are going to be dropping a lot more frequently. So we're excited about that. But Will, was there anything else you wanted to add?
See y'all boys at open practice on Sunday.
I won't be there. Wish I could, but I will be here for the first game of the season, October 29th. So hope to see y'all there. But we'll be back soon. So y'all take it easy.